What's going on, guys? This is Bradley alongside Zach, and you are listening to the Charm City Sideline podcast. Dawson could not make it today, but today we are getting back into the draft, and we're going to be talking about safeties. This is a position that the Ravens have some guys at. They got Kyle Hamilton. They got Ardarius Washington, we think. They got Bo Braid and Sanusi Kane. 4 guys. I think Braid and Kane are capable. I don't know if the Ravens want them to be starting. So this is a very interesting draft class. And I feel like we're sort of about to get into the logistics of why safety might be a position of need, even though they have 2 good starters already, Zach.
And the safety room is so interesting because if you have a top 3 guy and then you have another young guy in Ardarius that is wanting to be a part of the team's future, but it seems to be a little, I don't know the best word for it, disrupted by the whole extension talks and everything. And last year, given all the issues with safety, with Marcus Williams, does the team feel that it's important to have a third starting caliber safety in order to try the stuff that they did last year with moving Hamilton down and then eventually realizing that he could probably make the team a lot better if he stayed the deep safety. So I love the idea of getting someone in the draft. I love the idea of getting a really good veteran. I think that it, again, comes down to the best player available kind of situation, but there's some great guys day 1 and specifically, I think, day 2. So I can't wait to start talking about it.
Yeah, we agree there. You know, I have been a big advocate for Hamilton being able to play in the slot again, maybe not even full-time. Maybe it's a situation where you draft a safety and then you can confuse the heck out of the quarterback, offensive coordinator, because the Hamilton's in the slot 1 play, this rookie safety's deep, Ardarius Washington's over there, and they just keep switching and rotating wherever they're lined up. I think it'd be tough to defend. So I've been a fan of adding a safety these past couple months. I know you and Dawson haven't necessarily disagreed with me as well. So let's get right into it with what was the first one we did? D-line. We talked about 4 first-rounders, I believe, just in terms of, consensus boards across the nation of the internet. There's kind of 2 safeties here that are going to go in round 1. I would assume 2, maybe even 1. I doubt it's going to be 3. First guy we're going to talk about today is Malaki Starks out of Georgia. Starks is projected to be a late first-round pick. I think maybe he could go 15 at the earliest to the end of the first round. He's coming out as a junior, 6'1", 197 at the combine. Almost 32-inch arms, 9.5-inch hands. Starks has started 40 games in 3 years. He was a track athlete in high school, ran a 10.5 500-meter dash, state champ in the long jump. He's an interesting guy. Like a lot of these safeties, he can play in the slot. He can play deep. I think, in my opinion, he's the most NFL-ready safety in this class. He's obviously not perfect. I saw a play against, I think, Texas where they faked a wide receiver screen and threw it over the top, and he was all the way up at the line of scrimmage trying to make a play. There's a couple plays like that. I think that's coachable. I think you can fix that. At the same time, I'd say another negative possibly is he might not be as athletic, despite the long jump and track athlete. Maybe agility-wise, he's not as athletic as some of these other guys that we're going to talk about. But in my opinion, it's just like he's a great player. And he can cover man-to-man. You can have him in the slot. You can have him deep. I'm just imagining like Hamilton, Starks, and Washington all just playing together.
Oh, yeah.
And how tough it would be. And obviously, he's not going to be, I mean, maybe he will be I don't think he's going to be elite right off the bat, but this is something I've talked about with, when we did the D-line pod. The Ravens are in a situation where, honestly, no matter what position they draft, this guy is not going to have to play 100% of the snaps right away. If you draft a Starks, he doesn't need to be on the field every single play. Go back to Patrick Queen. He had to play all the time right away when the Ravens drafted him. Then you go back and think of a guy like Marlon Humphrey, did not have to start, did not have to play a ton when the Ravens drafted him. And I think that's a situation that could really help Malaki Starks. I think he'll play a lot. I just don't think you would need to put him in a situation where he's sort of the main guy on the back end all the time.
Yeah, and sorry about my camera here. I have issues, but I think Starks is like the easy starting caliber plug and play guy in the draft safety wise. And it's so obvious with his IQ. I think he's really sticky in coverage, and that's like an awesome thing in his safety. But I think there's no real glaring issue with him. I think that he has tendencies to be a part of defensive plays. When you just see like even just basic highlights from Starks, he's not really ever in big separation error issues. I think you mentioned the Texas one, but I mean, you can find him, everywhere with some special plays. But I think the big stuff is seeing how good he is just in general. He doesn't make that many mistakes. And I think that any team that gets him is probably just plugging him right in to be a starter.
Yeah, and like you said, he can be undisciplined at times, like the screenplay I mentioned. There's a couple other plays like that. Ball skills are insane. I think he has 3 interceptions over his career at Georgia that are all just crazy. One I wrote down, it was Ball State, threw a jump ball down the sideline. He just outjumps the receiver, catches the ball. I mean, all these safeties we're going to talk about, I feel like have better ball skills than anyone on the Ravens, which is kind of funny. I think he maybe struggles a little bit with guarding the small, shifty guys. If you put him in the slot against Jalen Waddle, he might have a little bit of trouble. But overall, man, I think he is. I'd be pretty excited if the Ravens took him at 27. Obviously, there's reasons he's not going top 10, like what we've just talked about. But I think everything is coachable. I trust the Ravens coaches, and yeah, like I said, I'd be very happy if they took him at 27.
I know that was also a big part of it. He's projected to the Ravens in so many mock drafts. I
Yeah.
think the last few with Mel Kiper have been Starks ending up with the Ravens. And I think a long time ago, he was not even close to where a Ravens pick would be. And now it's kind of a perfect match because his stock has kind of dropped a little bit. So while I really wouldn't mind a Starks pick, I think that the value of the next couple names that we'll talk about, I'm not as high on Emmanwori, but I think the next few guys would be the perfect range where a Raven safety would come into play.
Agreed. And now, just because of consensus rankings, and he probably will go in the first round, we're going to talk about Nick Emmanwori, safety from South Carolina. Him and Starks are like pretty similar, not similar at all in play style, but similar in terms of where they are projected to go in the draft. He's also coming out as a junior. And for anyone that doesn't know, Emmanwori, 6'3", 220, 32.5-inch arms. He is the size of Kyle Hamilton. It's pretty insane. He ran a 4.38 40, 43-inch vertical. Malaki Starks' vertical was 33 inches. So he jumped 10 inches higher than Malaki Starks. I will say Miles Boykin also jumped 43 inches. So that the combine doesn't mean everything. We all know that.
Yeah.
Emmanwori, everyone is comparing him to Hamilton. I think it's Cam Chancellor. I see a little more Cam Chancellor. He runs a sub 4.4. I think he has a chance to be really, really good I just don't love everything I see on tape. He is, in my opinion, a little, like, stiff. Obviously not slow because he's very fast, but I feel like he's a little stiff, like, I don't know. And, like, he obviously has some, mistakes, like, more than Starks, in my opinion. Not being the first to the ball all the time, sometimes, hanging on to a block too long, I feel like, without trying to get off of it. But you can't deny the athlete. I mean, imagine this guy, one-on-one on a tight end. It could be insane. But yeah, I have Emmanwori as my number 4 safety.
Wow.
So,
Okay.
I have 2 guys in between Starks and Emmanwori. With
Mhm.
that said, like, I will not be mad if the Ravens take him at 27.
Yeah.
Like, I do trust them that they know what they're doing. I kinda compare him to, like, and he has a lot more production than him, but he kinda reminds me of, like, Owe, but a safety.
Huh. That's a good way to
Um,
put it.
I feel like that it'd be kind of a similar pick to that. Now he's like pick sixes, he's interceptions, he catches the ball. I just do not love, like, when you compare him and Starks, Starks, like, looks like a, like, jacked up, like, on fire safety, and I just don't see the same thing in Emmanwori, even
Mhm.
though he's a great athlete.
Like the fire in him. I like that.
Yeah, yeah.
And I didn't have him as a 4, but I have him as my 3. So
Mhm.
as a first round kind of mock guy, the speed and size is just too obvious to not like ponder off and look at
Yeah.
a Watts or a Winston and it looks like any team would take the chance because if you see a guy that has put up such good numbers in the combine after having, a good year, I see that the biggest note for me was really handsy, and he had some issues with it. Uh, Even though he's so good against like a tight end. So whenever they're getting physical, it doesn't matter almost. So it
Mhm.
almost evens out. Um, Run game was also a little questionable for me in run support. I
Yeah.
didn't think that was perfect, but again, it's coachable things because if you see him as I saw him more closer to like the potential, like what everyone saw in an Isaiah Simmons a while back.
Yeah.
Whenever someone talked about Isaiah Simmons, it was like, "He could be the best." Oh, I see Cam Chancellor, like you just mentioned. And I see it again in Emmanwori because it's another player where it's all about the right system. It's the right coaches and the people around him. This is the definition of that kind of player because if he just goes to I don't know, if it's still the back end of the first round, it could be a good team for him. But
Yeah,
if it
yeah.
was a team that can't develop well, then this might be I have a big risk. I have a run game evens amount to a bigger risk than possible reward to me. That's where I
Mhm.
ended up being. So while teams seem to be very high on him because they should be given his athleticism and size, I took it with a little more grain of salt.
Yeah, yeah, like, if he ends up going early second, that could be maybe not a great situation for him
Hmm.
because of a bad team taking him, but yeah, he's probably gonna be fine because of the, late first. It's kinda funny, I was watching a show earlier where they were talking about, guys falling in the draft. I think they might have been talking about Shador, and
Hmm.
they were like, "It's better to fall for your, like, the
Oh yeah.
trajectory of your career because you go to a better team that isn't, like, full of idiots," I guess you could say, to put it in, like, a bad
Full of
way.
idiots.
Um, but yeah, I like him. I see, like, a ceiling Cam Chancellor, floor is, like, because Isaiah Simmons hasn't been a complete bust. He's been, like, a solid player, but he hasn't been what?
The hopeful,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, and I like that comp. I think the reason I'm low on him might be because of Isaiah Simmons.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Do you want to get into some day 2 guys now? I guess, we'll start with you. Give me your, I guess, because you
Next
you
couple
still have a
guys.
number 2 safety to talk about. Give me your number 2 safety that's probably gonna be a day 2 draft pick.
Well, that was the number 2 I had was Watts, Xavier Watts,
Yeah.
Notre Dame. I then had just to name the other 3 I had for just day 2, Kevin Winston, Lathan Ransom, Mukuba. We talked about him a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
But I think Watts just blew me away, as in the playmaker he is with hands. No one really compared to him as in a ball
Ball
hawk. That's a great way to put it. I have notes that he was a wide receiver out of high school, played a wide receiver as a freshman for Notre Dame, and then gets 13 interceptions over the past 2 seasons. The next highest was 9 for any player in that time frame. Like, he plays physical, like I said, with Emmanwori. That was kind of an issue. I don't love the super physicalness, but I do appreciate it when it is against, taller, bigger receivers and threats in that nature. The closeout speed was obvious. I love that. He fits Ravens DB bill is what I had for that, because I think that at least in the ball hawk side of it, whenever you see a ball hawk in a Ravens uniform, I feel like he's kind of all over the field. I didn't love, again, the run support side of him, but overall just blown away by the nature of getting to the ball, because when you talk about our safety room now, I forgot to mention this whenever we were starting. I love Kyle Hamilton. I love Ardarius Washington, but we're lacking the guy that is constantly watching and looking to take the ball away.
Which we thought was going to be Marcus Williams.
Yeah. So if Marcus can't fill that role, obviously, can we get a guy that can, hopefully, in a Watts or I think there's a few other guys I have listed here as good ball hawk guys. But
yeah,
I was so impressed with Watts and really having, 2-3 seasons as a safety. Where is the drop off? Is he going to stay as just a athletic ball hawk safety, or is he going to, kind of deteriorate given a smaller frame at 6 foot? I have him about 200 pounds. Does that kind of ruin his? Is that why he's lower on people's boards? Because even given the interception statistics, do people not want to take the big chance on him?
Mm-hmm. I mean, he's maybe slightly smaller than some of these guys. Xavier Watts, I think, because I'm thinking the same thing, Zach. I'm like, why is he not a first rounder?
Mm-hmm.
I think it's because we see all this new stuff now with the safeties that can play everywhere. And I feel like, at least in my opinion, I feel like he's a deep safety.
Bona fide, yeah.
And that might be why. Funny thing is, well, it depends on what the Ravens think they want to do. I was going to say, the funny thing is, I feel like that's what the Ravens need. Mm-hmm. If you have, because for anyone that hasn't watched Watts, he baits the quarterback. He has so many interceptions. Like Zach said, what was it, 13
awesome.
In a few years? He catches the ball every time, wide receiver earlier. I think he has probably the best football IQ in the draft. By the way, I have him at number 2 as well.
Nice.
For my safeties. I think maybe he struggles with tackling a little bit. You mentioned the run support. Sometimes he can, misstep, take a bad angle. And the last thing I wrote was not as much of a slot guy as Starks or Emmanwori, but he is an elite ball hawk.
Yeah.
And this is the Ravens signed Marcus Williams to do this. And I think Watts can do it. And I think I'd be very happy with him. The funny thing is, Watts, so Zach and I both like Watts more than Emmanwori, but yes. Watts is probably going to go mid to late second round. And a Field Yates mock came out a few hours ago.
I knew you were going to mention it.
Drafting James Pierce, pass rusher from Tennessee at 27, and getting Xavier Watts, the safety from Notre Dame at 59. That would be, I mean, wow. I don't have a word to describe it.
I have 2 words to describe it. Dream scenario. I was freaking out at the thought of that. Oh my gosh. That's literally the 2 words I have under Xavier Watts, because I wouldn't mention it if you didn't. Because that mock draft, I was like, whoa. I'm in love with James Pierce. I'm in love with Xavier Watts. So
agreed. Yeah.
That would be my perfect draft scenario. I could not think of a better outcome for the first 2 rounds.
I agree. Yeah, he would. If Watts is there at 59, I mean, that's an easy pick in my opinion.
Match made in heaven. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's everything on Watts, who we both have at 2 behind Starks. So you have Emmanwori at 3. I have Emmanwori at 4. So I
And
guess
who's
we
your
can talk
3?
about the guy that I have at 3, and you can also tell the audience where you have him ranked. So my number 3 safety is Andrew Mukuba
Oh.
from Texas. He's sort of a consensus 3rd round guy, mid to late 3rd.
Mm-hmm.
I like him more than Emmanwori, and I honestly, it took me a while to decide between him and Watts. They're pretty close in my opinion. Mukuba was born in Zimbabwe, moved to America, I think, as a kid. So that's pretty cool. He was at Clemson for, I think, 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, I read 3, I think.
3 years. Okay, yeah. Transferred to Texas for his senior year.
Mm-hmm.
And man, talk about like playing with your head on fire. This guy is so fun to watch. So my favorite D lineman to watch was Walter Nolan. Mukuba is my favorite safety to watch. I mean, it was so fun. If you guys are wondering why he's going to be a 3rd rounder, it's because he's 5'11", he's 185 pounds. So, also, he's not great in the run game because of his size. And his arms are 30 inches, which Darius Washington's, I think, are 29 and a half. So, I was reading on scouting reports that a lot of people are concerned about Mukuba's arm length. I think this is also more of a high safety type of guy, similar to Watts, but I do think he has a little more versatility than Watts does. So smooth, so athletic. I saw a play, similar to Starks. I saw a play where he just jumps higher than these safeties are mossing receivers. Like, it's insane. All these safeties are so athletic and have great hands. He had 5 interceptions last season. So yeah, Mukuba's my number 3 safety. Where do you have Mukuba, Zach?
I have him 5.
Okay.
So I guess I can reveal my 4 after this. But I was impressed with Mukuba in really the big plays. It felt like watching a different version of Darius because he is so electric in some of his big hits near the end. I'll note near the end of his Texas time. Like at the beginning, he had. I read a lot that was saying he lacked the explosive punch tackling ability and really poured it on near the end. If you can remember, I don't remember who it was. I think the national championship game or one of the college football playoff games, he absolutely obliterates a quarterback.
The quarterback.
Is it
Georgia?
Yeah. Did he kill?
It was the Georgia's backup quarterback.
He absolutely takes his head
near
off.
the goal line.
Yeah, and I'm like, whoa, this guy, like the difference in watching him earlier on in the year to the end, it's like the progression almost doesn't make any sense. I loved that because it seemed like he can change as the team needs him to. I had a note that you had him here at 3, but I had a note at the end that it was another name to mention with gems in the draft. I think that there's a different guy that I want to talk about who's before him, who I have a little bit higher, but he's the other gem. But Mukuba was impressive to me, seeing how late he's been projected, I guess.
Yeah, and the guy hit was Gunnar Stockton, who was the backup quarterback for Georgia.
Yeah,
it was called for targeting. Yeah, it was sick. It was called for targeting, but it got overturned. So good, clean hit. I think he plays with his head on fire so much he can be a little over aggressive at times. But I really think the only thing I think if Mukuba was 6'2" instead of 5'11", I think he's going in the first round. I would say one thing I'm thinking about, and this my big board is kind of has to do with the Ravens a little bit. And I think maybe the reason I chose Watts over him is because I don't know how great I feel about having Washington and Mukuba on the field. Like, obviously it'd be fine, but like to like if the Ravens drafted Mukuba and he's playing, Hamilton might be back in the slot, and then like your 2 deep safeties are both under 6 foot. And like I don't love that, but he's a great player, and he's probably He's probably going to go in the third round before the Ravens pick in the third round, but like I would take him at 59. Like I think he's a great player. So both of our top fours are done, right?
Well, I don't have my last four.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Emmanwori, I had Starks 1, Watts 2, Emmanwori 3, and I have Kevin Winston Jr. from Penn State as my 4.
Okay.
I fell in love watching him,
Yeah.
even though it was mostly 2023 tape.
Mm-hmm.
He got an ACL injury 2 games into the 2024 season, but beforehand was almost a book it first round hype safety with elite tackling. I fell in love watching him. I thought that the injury is literally the only thing that keeps him from being, up there. Everything I saw was about how he could be the biggest steal of the draft, because if he comes back and plays like he is showing in that first year of really being that star level safety, then you might have a starting caliber safety on your hands given in the second or third round. So I didn't necessarily see where he's projected as much, but I did have him listed very highly just because I enjoy watching a guy somehow come back from a big issue and an injury like that. And anything I saw from him was explosive. It honestly reminded me of Starks in the way that he was perfectly sound and looked elite. It looked like he was a plug and play guy. And then you just have that injury. It reminds me of a little of like someone like Ojabo, who was first round projected and then turns into a later pick just because of the scare and what an injury could be for him.
Yeah, and that's sort of exactly why I have him at 5 is because of what you just talked about. I mean, Ojabo's career has not, worked out.
Yeah.
And a torn ACL is tough. I will say he ran a 4.45 at his pro day 5 months after tearing it.
Ooh.
So that's pretty crazy. Obviously, ACLs are more of a like you can sprint when you're not fully recovered. It's more of a side to side type of thing. He's coming out as a junior, 6'1.5", 215. He's probably going to be a third rounder, maybe a fourth. Maybe someone takes him in the second because they're in love with his 2023 tape. I don't have too many bad things to say about his actual play.
Yeah.
I think if he didn't tear his ACL this year, I might have him at 2 behind Starks or maybe 3 behind Watts because I like Watts a lot. But I feel like he doesn't miss tackles really. It's kind of just the knee injury.
That's
Everything is
literally
really
the only note I could find that was negative on him. I wanted to find just I love looking at like PFF to see what they ever have to say, just to give like rankings on them.
Yeah.
And they're like, besides Mukuba, it was Kevin Winston as the biggest hopeful gem of the draft, given how good he looked before the injury.
He's not quite as tall as Emmanwori, but also like Winston on a tight end. That's that's a great matchup. Maybe the only thing is like maybe not as great as a deep safety as Watts or Mukuba would be.
Sure.
I think he'd definitely be, it's kind of funny now that you think about it. Like free safety and strong safety used to be so much more popular of a term when we were like kids.
Yeah.
And even in the early 2010s, like that's not really used anymore. But
Hardly
I see
ever.
Winston kind of as like more of a strong safety. Yeah, I have him at number 5. I would be, it's just tough with the ACL. Like I understand that he ran a 4.45. Keaton Mitchell was also like sprinting on a treadmill, months before he came back, and he still wasn't like himself. So yeah, I have Winston at 5. I'd be fine with him at 91. I think the Ravens have. Would you be fine with him at 59?
I would take it given my confidence in him, but I mean, if a different guy is there, I mean, Xavier Watts or one of those D linemen we were talking about, I don't know.
Yeah.
I feel pretty good about. I feel good about that situation where that pick is. You almost can't mess that up. That's such a good spot. I love
91.
that late. No. Sorry, second round.
59.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so to go over my top 4: Starks, Watts, Mukuba, Emmanwori. Zach, your top 4 is?
It was Starks, Watts, Emmanwori, Winston.
Yeah. There you go. And you have Mukuba at 5.
Yes.
I have Winston at 5.
Mm-hmm.
So
We're
I
pretty
feel like,
close then. What?
what'd you say?
We're pretty close. I mean,
Yeah, yeah.
you had the higher on Mukuba, which I was
Um,
impressed. Oh my gosh. There it goes.
is there any other day 2 guys you want to talk about?
I thought that someone like Lathan Ransom for Ohio State was really impressive. He had the
Yeah.
highest graded run game defender grade from PFF, and really impressive instincts. I thought that he's like a perfect plug and play third safety guy for a Ravens if it were to be a match made in heaven there. But I didn't have many notes on him. I just thought he was a capable come in and play safety. Nothing about him was really bad besides some deep targeting stuff. But other
Mhm.
than that, super hard hitting safety that matched kind of
Yeah.
a bill. He 6'1", I have him at, and 210. So, I mean, middle of the road. He seems like a good,
Solid player.
yeah, like there was nothing too off about him in any real way. He seems like a bona fide NFL safety.
Yeah. He's got the peanut punch going on. I saw a few times.
Yeah.
I didn't watch him a ton. I know he blocked 2 punts in 2022, so he definitely
I
could
didn't
be
see that. What? Really? That's awesome.
a special teams contributor right away,
Okay.
which Harbaugh loves.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Ransom from Ohio State, probably a 3rd round pick. Ravens maybe snag him at 91 as a safety there. I think I have him at 7. Do you have him at 6?
Yes.
Yeah. So now I guess we can get into low key, my favorite topic when we do these day 3 gems.
Mm-hmm.
I will let you.
Well, you have
hope you
3. You should probably start, right? Don't you have 3? Or do you want to
I
only
have
say
2
2?
now because oh yeah, I have 3. I have 3. I have 3.
Okay.
So should I start with 1?
Give us 1.
Okay. So a guy I fell in love with watching was Billy Bowman out of Oklahoma.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, that was
5'10" senior, 192. So also not quite as
Mhm.
big as your typical safety. 11 career interceptions,
Yeah.
3 pick sixes. He reminded me a little bit of Geno Stone, a faster Geno Stone. Very instinctive against the pass. Versatility. Everyone saying similar to Mukuba that he lacks NFL size, can be over aggressive a little bit, sometimes outmatched on jump balls because of his 5'10". You know
Yeah.
what's interesting? I feel like Ardarius Washington is never outmatched. He's like 5'9", and he's just always
Always
fine.
out there. Yeah. Yeah.
Um, yeah, Bowman out of Oklahoma is a guy I liked a lot, but I think I have him at I have him at 7, and I have Ransom at 8. My number 6 guy. Or did you have anything else you want to say about Bowman?
No, I just thought he was awesome playmaker guy. Sadly, it's the most mean thing I can say about a prospect. I think that so far I have a note for his tackling was rough. He didn't have a bad like effectiveness in it, but he
Yeah.
tackles like almost at the shoulders every time,
Uh-huh.
and it reminded me of watching Marcus Peters. That was
Yeah.
a little. That was probably the worst thing I guess I've said about a prospect yet. But
Yeah.
overall, I was like, I'm in love with big play ability and a guy that late.
Yeah. Yeah. So he's probably going to be a day 3 guy. My favorite day 3 guy, and this is my number 6 safety, right behind Winston, Jonas Sanker out of Virginia. I don't know if you watched him or not.
I did not, but I've heard his name.
Special teams, insane on special teams. Like he will be making an impact on special teams
Wow.
immediately. A couple picks. He's like pretty athletic in my opinion, instinctive, physical. I like him a lot. He's all over the field. He's a great gunner. He's great on kickoff. Like I think he'd be playing special teams right away. And I could see him maybe working his way in to the field on defense. I'd love him in the 4th round. I think he's from Charlottesville and he went to Virginia, so he kind of stayed there.
Wow.
I guess, loyal to his hometown. Pretty cool. But yeah, he's really fun to watch. Like half of his highlights were on special teams, and the other
That's
half were on
awesome.
defense. It was pretty cool.
Okay, that definitely means he's on the Ravens radar for
I
sure.
think Harbaugh might fall in love. All right, who else do you have for day 3?
My only other day 3 guy was Dean Clark of Fresno State.
Mm.
Wasn't the most athletic guy, but everything he was doing on the field was perfect. It wasn't a like, wow, he separates himself in the size and athleticism and speed, but it was again what I saw in someone like Ransom, where he seems like a guy that comes in and plays the safety position very well. He has really good anticipation. I thought his tackling was dang near perfect, and any real play he made, he was screaming. I love a high
Yeah.
competitiveness player that's just ready to like burst like that. So I really liked watching someone like that. The names just in day 3 were so much more fun to look at. Like Bowman and Clark would be perfect late round safeties that I think the Ravens would grab and just somehow make not total starting caliber, but it's one of
Yeah.
those names that the Ravens get and make an
Slowly, year
impactful
3.
player. Yes. Like
Yeah.
what we see in someone like
Geno Stone.
Ardarius. Or
Yeah,
yeah,
Ardarius
perfect.
Geno
Gino.
Stone. I didn't watch. You said Dean Clark, right? I didn't
Mhm.
watch him. But sounds like a great player, and I feel like that could be Ravens could be a good spot for him. Maybe fifth round-ish, 6th round,
Mhm.
maybe.
Yeah.
My final guy, I always try to have like a 6th, 7th round guy in here. I talked about Cam Jackson from Florida in the D line. Keaton Crawford out of Nevada is my sort of 6th or 7th round gem here.
Mhm.
4 years at Texas,
Oh.
transferred to Nevada for his 5th year. I
Oh.
guess Mukuba might have taken his spot.
Yeah, probably did.
So if you go, I'm not telling you to, I'm telling our audience too. If you go to like NFL.com and you look at like all the combine stats, 3-cone, broad jump, vertical jump, 20-yard shuttle, he's like first in all of them.
Really?
So insane athlete. Super explosive, so smooth. I think his role at Texas, I don't exactly know why he transferred. I'm thinking maybe the reason for him being such a late round pick now is because he was playing at Nevada. And like obviously like a lot of these guys, not, elite in run support, I would say. But he's experienced on special teams as well. He could play special teams right away. He's physical, fast, smooth, obviously extremely bouncy. And that's a guy I would love the Ravens to take with one of their final picks on the final day of the NFL draft.
Wow.
So I say, Zach, go ahead and rank real quick, like every safety that you watched or however many rankings you have.
I didn't really rank any of the late round guys, so
Yeah.
I can do my day 1 and 2, which would be Starks, Watts, Emmanwori, Winston, Mukuba, Ransom.
Yeah. I have Starks, Mukuba, Watts, Emmanwori, Winston, Sanker, Bowman, Ransom. So yeah, those are all of our safeties that we love in this draft. Final sort of topic for this video is, what do the Ravens end up doing? What would you do if you were Eric DeCosta, Zach, regarding safety in this draft?
Yeah, I think that the second round is where it's meant to be if you want a safety. I think Starks is a good fit. I think that's a great best player available pick. I think that I'm not as sold on an Emmanwori pick. I don't want a big project for the secondary right now, given their struggles in the first half of the season and all. So I look towards a Watts or a Winston as a potential second round pick, and hoping that their ball hawk ability and big playmaking ability is what creates a great safety number 3 in the secondary. I I think there's still people out there like Justin Simmons, veteran safeties that would
Yeah.
be capable of
Julian
filling
Blackmon.
that spot. Julian Blackmon, of course, your guy. While I don't rule those guys out because it looks like the Ravens are still in that veteran market, calling up veterans with Calais and all before he made that deal.
Man.
I think that they're still going to make those calls. It's just about finding the right deal. I mean, you can't compete with paying Calais $7.5 million when you don't have that much right now. So I think if someone like a Simmons or insert different veteran free agent, your guy, want to take a lot less money, I think absolutely do it. But I think there is gems to be found in the later round or the later rounds in the draft.
Yeah, I love the safety class. And like I said, I'm probably taking a James Pierce over a Starks at 27 if Pierce is there.
100%.
But I would be thrilled with Starks at 27 still. Similar to you, Emmanwori would be more of a I'm not going to be mad if they take him. But, I wouldn't do it. Like you said, second round, third round, I think they could get a starter. I think they could get a starter. The issue is I love Mukuba, and I don't think he's going to be there at 91. And in terms of, all the draft optics and everything, he's probably a reach at 59, but, I don't care. Mukuba at 59 would be a great pick. Watts at 59 would be an insane pick.
Yeah.
I think
I'm so sorry. Doesn't this feel like getting a second round guy? If you could move up a few picks and get a Watts,
yeah,
it feels like a situation where I love Ardarius Washington, but given the weird troubles of reaching an extension, if you have a safety that goes in there and really shows out in mini camp and training camp, potentially takes his job by the end of the year. And maybe even a Washington turns into a 3. You then have a starting caliber guy that you kind of kick Ardarius to the curb because if he was demanding more money, then so be it. But you have 2 hopeful great safeties that you've gotten for good looking deals for the time being, I guess, before we pay Hamilton.
I'll say if they draft Starks, Emmanwori, or Watts, I think they'd probably be playing right away. And Hamilton would probably be in the slot. Or the guy they draft. And I think it could be a situation where I think Washington will still play all season, but I think maybe if Washington has a really good year, and so does this mystery rookie, maybe they don't extend Washington.
That's what I'm thinking.
I think that could be a very probable situation. I would love Watts or Mukuba in the second round. And I agree with you. If you need to move up 4 spots to go get Watts at 55 instead of 59, trade one of your 7 6th round picks or whatever you need to do and go get him. Because an edge rusher or a Tyler Booker combined with Watts that's an insane draft. And I think they can get a great player at 91 too. So
I see a succession plan with a drafted safety because, the history of Queen and Roquan and Trenton Simpson getting Simpson and hoping to be that successor. If Ardarius is going to ball out, Queen also balled out his last year. So if he balls out, demands a lot more money, you hopefully have a successor. And I would definitely hope it's Watts. I think that is my favorite Raven fit for sure. I'd be the most confident getting him, hoping that he turns into a bona fide starter.
Yeah, I agree. In terms of pick and value, I think Watts at 59 is probably the best. I would also love Mukuba at 59. We'll see if that happens. But yeah, safety, man. Safety. We are going to talk about edge rushers on Friday.
Ooh.
That's going to be a long episode because there's 6, 7, 8 guys going in the first round in that position group. But I guess we might not spend as much on day 2 in that one. I love this safety. This draft class has gotten a lot of heat for not having all the blue chip guys. Ravens aren't drafting those guys ever anyway, besides Kyle Hamilton, I guess. So like,
Yeah.
I think the depth of this class is a lot better than other classes. I don't know if you're getting a Mukuba in the 3rd round in other drafts, which is kind of insane. But appreciate all you guys for watching. We'll be back in a few days talking about edge rushers.
Mm-hmm.
Ezraku, James Pierce. We'll see what happens. Like the video, subscribe, check us out on Spotify. We're going to get on Apple Podcasts really soon. So if anyone wants to listen over there, you will be able to soon. And yeah, I think that's all we have. We will see you guys next time.